Is this team going to win 9 games? Is this team going to win 10 games? Or what's it? Was it going to win 8? The Vegas win total right now sitting at 8.5. All of that also is going to depend on the defense, because this was a team. We talked about the identity running the football last year. They had an identity of playing very solid defense last year as well. And from everything that I look at, Mason, and listen to for the Vols, and just looking at some of the names that are returning, Dominic Bailey, Jackson Moy, Bryson Eason, those are very familiar names along the defensive line. Arian Carter, Jermond McCoy, Jeremiah Tellender. These are all very familiar names along the linebacker core there. The defense, especially the front 7 of this defense, or front 6, if you will, considering they're kind of a multiple 4-2-5 defense. I like the front. I really do. I mean, is depth a little bit more of a concern from last year? Maybe a little bit. I mean, Tyree West is back as well. Hearing some things about Nathan Robinson. So I think you got some depth as well. The secondary, though, man, is where I've got some serious questions. It seems like 5 minutes ago, at the time we're recording this, I was just reading the story about a Tennessee safety who has hit the exit, right? And it was, to a lot of people's surprise, and of course now his name is slipping my mind. Yeah, it was Thomas. Yeah. Him exiting right after some social media buzz that he would be sticking around, and then it was kind of just like a dagger back, it felt like, and a little bit of salt on a wound. And, obviously the wound being the whole Nico situation, whether you're, unhappy about it, happy about it, whatever you are, it was still a shock to the senses for sure. And Boo Carter, a guy that is, I got a ton of football respect for. He seemed pretty upset about the situation as well. So I think it kind of took him by surprise. But you do have Boo Carter, as I mentioned, coming back. Ricky Gibson, played some last year. So you do have a little bit of experience coming back, but that free safety position is a big concern. We can start with the D-line stuff, I guess. Dominic Bailey, Jackson Moy, Bryson Eason, Tyree West. Those are 4 names that I trust a pretty good bit on that defensive line. Do you lose some NFL talent? Obviously you did. But these are guys that I feel like are pretty tried and true. And I think they're going to be able to hold their own. And then Arian Carter there at linebacker, man, that guy's an absolute stud. What are your thoughts? I guess we'll kind of look at the front 6 or 7, however you want to look at it there, and then kind of look at the secondary as a separate thing, because it kind of seems like 2 different sections of the defense. We've got a lot of experience, and then we got a lot of question marks.
Yeah, well, starting up front, I mean, you're losing James Pierce, who might have been the best edge in college football last year. Norman Lott, who was great up the middle, with Amari Thomas, who was not just great up the middle, but also a big leader in this defense and for the entire team. And then also Elijah Simmons. So, you look at that production and you look at what they lost and how many of those guys are going to be playing in the NFL. And you think, holy crap, this defensive line is just going to be depleted. Well, kudos to Tennessee last year, because, I mean, they just absolutely played a ton of players on the defensive line. This was a 7-man front, from a rotating 7 men, kind of coming in and out of 3 different positions there on the defensive line. And so now you've got Dominic Bailey, who was one of the better defensive linemen last year when he was in. You've got Jackson Moy, who's a guy who can get penetration through the offensive line and get to the quarterback coming out of the nose tackle position. He's got the twitch to do that. Bryson Eason, who was great last year. And then Tyree West, kind of backing those 3 up in any position. He's probably going to play a little bit more on the edge, at the defensive end position, I guess. But I like those 4, like you mentioned. I mean, really good production out of them. I really like Devin Hobbs. I think he's going to be fine. Nathan Robinson, is he going to step up? Isaiah Campbell's a freshman that comes in. How much do we see him factor into this defensive line. I do think that at some point we see him making some plays. So to me, in a Tim Banks defense, I'm not worried about this defensive line. I really think that they're going to be just fine. And then coming off of kind of that Leo position, that middle, that outside linebacker position, Joshua Josephs might be the best of the bunch. Caleb Herring, I'm hearing good things about him, but Joshua Josephs, I think, can come in. Is he going to be James Pierce? No. James Pierce was an absolute athletic freak, but Josephs plays sound football. And he had plenty of snaps last year. Ended up with a couple of sacks himself. So I think that you're fine on all four of those positions up front. Your two middle linebackers, love Arian Carter. You're losing Peely from last year. That was a pretty big loss. Jeremiah Tellander, he comes in. He stepped in last year, played his role pretty well. I think that you're fine at the linebacker position for the most part. And then, I'm with you, Mark, on the back end of this defense. You're fine at cornerback and at nickelback, right? Boo Carter, Ricky Gibson, and the best of the bunch, in my opinion, right now, one of the best cornerbacks in college football, Jermod McCoy, coming over, last year. You're fine at those three positions, but you're pretty depleted at both safety positions, right? Right now, it's looking like Idris Farouk and Andre Turrentine, and I just feel like. And I don't know what happened here. Why is Jacoby Thomas going to play for Miami, right? Which is where it seems like he's going to end up. It's got to be related to money. Right? That's the only thing that I can think of. But you had the position on lock. He wasn't even that good last year. And that's what's crazy. Is like, this isn't some huge name that is leaving in the spring portal. This is a guy who had a position, who was trying to get better, and now he's just chasing a bag seemingly. You hate to see it. And then Charles Christian, neither one of those guys were great. The safety position, both safety positions were a little bit underwhelming last year in general, but you certainly hate to see two guys leave. That had some starts, that had some experience and some snaps. Now you feel like that room on the back end of the defense is depleted from an experience standpoint. I would be surprised if we don't see Tennessee get somebody at the safety position to come over and transfer in this, on the back end of the spring portal window. But it's spring, right? You should have your roster pretty much figured out by now. And now you got guys leaving. You got starters leaving. And so it's a tough situation to be in. But I feel confident in Tim Banks as the defense coordinator. I think he is going to figure this one out at some point.
Yeah, I have faith, and I think, again, this is going to be a defensive-led football team. I think the identities are going to be very similar, as we've already kind of glossed over. The identities are going to be similar to last year. Run the football, play solid defense. I guess technically really run the football and stop the run. If you want to simplify it even more, is probably going to be the formula for the Tennessee Vols.